It also gives you alerts to missing or incorrect information. You should feel good that your information is encrypted and stored with firewall protection. Then you're going to enter your payment information and press submit. Remember, along the way, you can start this process and save it multiple times. So save it, print out your, do a print preview, print it, review it, have someone review it with you, because this is a really important application. After you submit the application, you're going to print the acknowledgement to keep it for your records and also to remember all the data that you entered, because if you do need to make a change, you're going to want to remember what you entered originally. Then the data on your profile is analyzed, reported to the colleges and scholarship programs you've specified. They then use a report to help determine your financial aid. This financial aid application comes with some good news and some bad news. Having to complete the profile is it's a mixed story. The bad news is that there's a fee and the form is much more complex than the FAFSA application, and you're going to give them a lot more information. The good news is that the colleges that use the CSF profile have billions of dollars of their own scholarship money to award, way more than the federal government can offer. So it takes time, but this is where the money may really come from. So roll up your sleeves and get down to business. The extra effort may pay off big time with additional aid. Now, the CSS Profile is a much lengthier application because the application considers all income streams and assets that the FAFSA doesn't always consider. The CSS Profile is going to ask you about your retirement accounts. They're going to ask you about home equity on your family's primary resident. They're going to ask about income and assets held by the non-custodial parents, like I mentioned. In addition, some colleges are going to ask more information, for example, of expenses. What kind of debt you have. What are you paying for high school, private schools? The colleges with the biggest endowment funds need to be more diligent on that information. They have the most money and they want to make sure that the right people are qualifying for those high amounts of institutional aid. The profile assesses the money you have in the bank, but it also takes the money you pay into consideration. So when I talk about expenses, things like medical expenses, high school tuition for siblings, debts, if your family's home is underwater, business expenses and other costs just aren't taken into account in the FAFSA, and it can help some families to qualify for more aid. They ask all the questions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all assets will subtract from the student's financial aid package, so don't be scared to share what they're asking and be accurate. When financial aid officers at some profile private schools are asked, most claim that as far as retirement assets go, they like to have that information available, but it's not factored into the actual aid calculation. Unlike the FAFSA, which determines how much government aid you're eligible for regardless of where you attend school, colleges and universities individually decide how to interpret the CSS profile information and which assets and expenses to take into consideration. So every college is likely to use a slightly different formula depending on which factors they deem most important. So how are you going to maximize your aid? The profile is much more thorough than the FAFSA, but there are some steps families can take to maximize their age eligibility. One big mistake that I see families make is overestimating the value of the primary home. The lower you can keep your home value within reason will help keep your expected family contribution, or EFC, down and potentially garner more aid. Families are proud of their real estate. Every family that comes in and estimates for me what their family's worth, what their home is worth. When we go online to a website like Zillow.com or check with a local realtor to see any homes in the neighborhood that have actually sold recently, often the value is lower than what they're estimating. So whatever you use to verify the value of your home, make sure you keep a copy of the information for your records, just in case you're asked how you did estimate it, but this is the time when you want to keep your home value low. Also, like the FAFSA, the CSS profile weighs greater weight on any assets that are held in the student's name versus what's held in the parent's name. It's very difficult to quantify exactly how much every college will take into account for the student's assets, because basically they all will make different formula adjustments, but they all will weigh student assets heavier than parent assets. So to up your federal aid eligibility, as well as potential aid eligibility on the CSS profile, it's worthwhile to shift assets from accounts held in the student's name to those held in the parent's name prior to filling out either the FAFSA or the CSS profile. Share information about any unusual financial circumstances with the financial aid office at every college. Some schools encourage you to discuss your concerns in person, though most colleges prefer to receive a written and signed statement first. And there's a section on the CSS profile to include any notes or special circumstances at the end of the application. Remember, the CSS profile is frequently due earlier than the FAFSA, so you want to make sure that you check your deadlines. I would encourage you to create a chart or a calendar so you have the deadlines for all of the various requirements at every institution you're considering. Schools that require the CSS profile will likely also require that you complete the FAFSA as well as a proprietary form specific to their particular school. Unlike the FAFSA, which is a clear formula, we were saying the CSS profile is used by colleges, but we don't know the exact colleges of the profile that the colleges use. So what do? Well, the information's not always easy to understand, but every college has a net cost calculator on their website. Since the Higher Education Opportunity Act of 2008 mandated it last year, every post-secondary institution has to post a net price calculator on their website. The mandate is intended to help students and families manage their financial expectations early on through sticker price transparencies. But are these new tools really providing such clarity? Well, the tools are designed really to exactly estimate what the family will see on an award letter. But the process of awarding financial aid is at times more of an art than a science, so colleges are challenged with trying to make their online net price calculators work exactly correctly. Also, the net price calculators should take merit aid into account, but those are really tough. You can say what your GPA or SAT score is, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee what kind of merit aid you're going to get. I've taken a look at a ton of net price calculators on website. Judging from these calculators that I've tested, there's a wide variation among their design, and some are more technical than others. But the majority would require maybe 15 minutes for an applicant to complete, and you have to go onto the specific college website. For example, Harvard's calculator is simple. It's a one-page, drop-down menus for each field. Harvard only awards need-based aid. They have no merit aid, so it's a quick, easy formula, in fact, a very preferential one to the IM formula. On the other hand, Williams College Calculator has 3 distinct tabs, a mix of drop-downs and fill-in-the-blanks. It's a little more confusing. Colgate, Mount Holyoke, the University of Chicago, University of Virginia, and many other colleges simply use the College Board template. That means that they just send people from their net price calculators to the College Board and they say, hey, we are going to use that formula, which is the IM formula that we talked about earlier. Students do remain anonymous when they apply these things. To do the using the cost price calculator does not mean you've actually applied to the college. It's just for an estimate. Other colleges, Dartmouth College, for example, offers 2 calculators. One for a family with income below $200,000, which is the College Board calculator, and if a family is above that amount, they only have fill-in-the-blank fields. But clearly, at Dartmouth College, a family can make over $200,000 and qualify for financial aid. So Congress has instituted these guidelines for these tools, and the calculated cost must include room and board, books and supplies, fees, but every different school calculator is framing their results different. So it's still tough to compare apples to apples. But it is going to be important to note that you are going to want to compare the net price calculators to each school, and if when you get your award letter, it doesn't match the net price calculator, you're going to want to let them know. Also remember that the net price calculators are only offering annual costs. That's for 1 year. So some of the colleges are saying, well, this is confusing. We need to be multiplying this by 4, and the students are really confused because it's so expensive. They can't even imagine spending $60,000 a year, and so they don't realize that it actually is $60,000 a year or $240,000. So it makes sense to visit the websites of the colleges you're considering and enter your personal information, get estimate of your net price calculator. It can be confusing, and if you'd like some help in the process, let me know. I hope every family understands the importance of the CSS profile, and if you were thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to apply, that you do apply and enter all the accurate information. You might be surprised that your family may qualify for more financial aid than you thought. Well, that wraps up another weekly show of College Smart Radio. We hope you picked up some new information today that helps you figure out ways to manage the runaway cost of college. You can hear us each week here on AM 1220 KDOW at 3 p.m., Saturdays at 3 p.m. We promise to bring you up-to-date information from the front lines of helping parents deal with the most expensive years of their lives. For a link to a podcast of this show and our prior weekly shows, go to our website, collegesmartradio.com. In addition to the podcast, you'll also find a schedule of our upcoming shows. Make sure to print out or bring up on your tablet our glossary of college planning terms for reference during our future shows. It's a complicated topic to navigate, and without knowing the terms, it's easy to get lost. Also, plan on joining us at one of our upcoming West-Face College Planning and FAFSA workshops. We're going to have a couple in January. You do need to reserve a seat at the workshop, and you can do so from the show's website, www.collegesmartradio.com. This is Beatrice Schultz. Thanks for tuning in to College Smart Radio. We look forward to sharing more helpful information for you next week.
You've been listening to College Smart Radio with Certified Financial Planner Beatrice Schultz. If you have questions on today's topic, log on to collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. That's 650-587-1559. Join us next week at this time for another edition of College Smart Radio on AM 1220 KDOW.